Hello, everyone. Welcome to our general session. Safe and sound PR strategies for reopening your venues. I should say venues and events to fans, since we kind of have a wide range of wonderful women for this panel that I'm super excited to do a brief introduction with. And obviously, we've definitely touched on the pandemic part of the first day and some of these sessions this morning as well. But these PR marketing gurus, as I will refer to them, have been some of the first to welcome fans back to their venues, to their events, and they're just here to sort of share some of those experiences that they've had as they've reopened, what worked, what hasn't, and then sort of how we've pivoted as an industry and just giving some insights and any recommendations to folks. Because like I said, in talking earlier, before we all met before this, we're in California, myself at Staples Center, and we're sort of one of the last ones to reopen. So we've been keeping a close eye on the rest of the country and borrowed ideas that made sense and watched what's worked for everybody. So without further ado, I just want to do a brief intro of our panel. Claire Surratt Francis is a Senior Director of Marketing at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. Ereka Brim is a Senior Manager of Marketing at the Spectrum Center in Charlotte. And Jessica Eckley is a partner with Crackerjack Media, based out of Tampa, with clients that include WWE and this past Super Bowl in Tampa for 2021. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
I'm going to kick off the first question a little bit more venue-centric. So Ereka and Claire, you can kind of chime in here and what you feel is best. But if you share with us what your venue did and how you prepared to welcome fans back from communications, marketing, any sort of strategies that you put in place, and then, what worked, what didn't, things that you've changed and sort of pivoted as you reopened and welcome back fans.
Claire, you want me to start?
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. So actually our arena operations department spearheaded a team that focused on the health and hygiene and safety advisory, which included our stakeholders within the arena as well as the community and partnership support. And one of the things that they did early on is that they established the understanding that we needed to see if we could get some of the certifications to start off with, giving us some sort of accountability that we were really trying to work towards getting our fans back in a healthy and happy space. So we secured the GBAC certification, and we also did the WELL certification, and we added those to all of our external communications, i.e. website to social media, any place that we thought any of our fans would go to get information, just to have a good understanding of what the expectations were, because of course they were always changing daily. So those were some of the first steps that we took as far as how could we get back to having live events?
Yeah, and similarly, we started a COVID task force, which I'm sure a lot of venues did. And they really helped us prepare by putting together a full packet so that whenever we were asked, we had all the information there up front. And we chose to start with, because we are an NHL facility, we have an NHL team as a tenant. And we started with scrimmages that had employees as patrons. So our employees were in different pods, and we had 2 scrimmages. That was one pod, and another scrimmage that was a different pod, with a full list, a checklist of things that we were requiring staff to submit so that we could get instant feedback, find out where we needed to improve before opening to general public. We also had players, friends, and family, so we got some additional outside feedback as well.
Claire, can you kind of give a little bit more insight into something that I personally noticed and a lot of folks at Staples Center noticed is you guys kind of took that approach of calling it Smash Fail Safe. Like you almost branded your task force messaging, which I thought was super unique and just made it, you really use everything you do to like market a show, but you were marketing to people to make them feel safe and all those things that you did. So how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, so it's important to us because we are, we operate all together as one entity. So the Nashville Predators being our professional hockey team, and then obviously at Bridgestone Arena, we knew we're going to return with events, non-sporting events. So the Smashville branding applies to, both aspects. So we wanted to have something that was applicable to, it doesn't matter whenever you're here. So we refer to this being Smashville. I mean, really, Smashville can be in your heart. It can be anywhere. This is Smashville. So Smashville safe branding lives and is, just as applicable on the Bridgestone Arena main page as it would be on the Nashville Predators page. We also want to have something that media was familiar with. So they know they utilize the word Smashville all the time. It's a lot easier, if we just feed them Smashville safe.
Well, no, it was a great campaign. And like I said, one of those ones that we borrowed from and has been a huge asset to helping educate for us, multiple teams, and again, those non-event fans, non-tenant events. Jessica, can you kind of share some of the strategies that you implicated as more of person bringing the really first fans back to events that were surrounded the Super Bowl and then for WrestleMania?
Yeah, so with us, similarly, we had to have messaging that arched amongst both indoor and outdoor venues. Super Bowl obviously is one that not only hit the different NFL fan experiences and Raymond James Stadium, but we also had 3.5 miles of river walk to cover in a number of outdoor parks. So Florida being one of the first ones back to big events, I think one of the things was we really had to also communicate and regulate safety even in outdoor spaces. And that actually began with working alongside our city and county government leaders. We have a forward-thinking mayor here. And so she actually mandated mask wearing even in outdoor spaces, which I know can kind of range from location to location, but that was not the case here in Tampa. So that actually really helped set the tone and the expectation, making it a little easier on our volunteers who are working in some of those outdoor spaces. Similarly, we had guidance from the NFL. And so the branding from a health and safety standpoint was really visible throughout every single venue, whether again, that was at NFL Experience, walking along the Riverwalk, or as you head into Raymond James Stadium on game day. So that really became key, was just that everywhere you turn, we were constantly reminding people. And I think that knowing that Super Bowl was one of those where there was a concern about whether it would be a super spreader event, we were really conscious of just echoing those concerns and those fan safety protocols at every turn.
Cool. This one I'll throw out to all of you guys is, how from a PR standpoint, did you leverage your local media partners, broadcast partners, NFL, NHL, NBA partners? Like, how did you sort of tie them in? And then on top of that, a follow-up would be any other maybe sponsorship partners in that sense case. Like, obviously you said local dignitaries and things of that nature, like a mayor, city councils, things like that. But also I think when we previously spoke, a lot of you brought up healthcare partners within your market and tying in with them. So Ereka, you want to kind of talk about that from the Charlotte side?
Sure. So our Hornets PR and communications department, they scheduled media availability for our vice chairman and our building GM pretty much the day after we announced that we were going to reopen. And there in that space, we shared our plans and different ideas of what we thought were going to be the best protocols to have our fans back in the building. We also scheduled several one-on-one interviews through our radio and TV partners as well. And the day of our opening, we made sure that we had available, again, our vice chairman and our building GM to do radio and TV interviews, just in case questions had come from, our social media pages, from website, anything that gave the fans an opportunity to have questions or inquiring, what do we need to do next? One of the other things that we did is we partnered with our healthcare provider, which is Novant, and we hosted a game, I believe it was on March the 11th, where it was just for our healthcare workers to show them how much we appreciated what they had done for our community and We made them feel really special and welcome, and it was just for them and their families. So those were just like two opportunities where we took the time to just show the community how much we supported them and how much we were ready to move forward. But the most important thing was to make sure that we had our venue ready and open and everybody would feel safe returning.
Perfect. Claire, anything in Nashville that you did that you feel like stands out that from a media partner standpoint or healthcare partners that was successful?
Yeah, so we hosted a media day prior to those scrimmages that I referenced earlier, and we got a lot of feedback from FedEx Forum. So they had hosted a similar media day. So we received some feedback from them and made 3 executives available, invited all the media outlets, and they walked through the new protocols. And that ended up being very helpful because our media partners kept that footage, and every time we had a new attendance change, then they would reissue some of that footage, and that was really helpful for us that they had that in the can so early in January, and then they just were able to continually run that messaging. So media day is definitely something that, you know, we would do again. And then our healthcare partner is Vanderbilt Health, and we ran our protocols by them and asked for guidance and just, you know, messaging and tried to align with what they were communicating as well. And our relationship with them allowed us to partner they ran a national campaign. It's called Be a Fan, Take the Shot. So, you know, more geared towards vaccinations, but Brad Paisley recorded that TV spot and used our arena. And so our ice was featured, one of our players was featured, and there are other local sports teams featured as well, but that gave us a presence in a national campaign. So just working with our relationship with them really paid off.
That's awesome. Jessica, how about in Tampa? I mean, I'm assuming, again, with it being sort of the first, really one of the first huge events with all the concerns, how did you manage the media messaging?
So with each of the events, both WrestleMania and Super Bowl, you know, we were really proactive with PR, making sure that we were, you know, doing stories on the front end and educating anybody who was going to be out at the different fan events or even at the games. But I think what became important around, you know, WrestleMania, for instance, is we were doing a lot of talent interviews. And so with that, it really became just as important, whether it was an executive or, you know, one of our professional WWE superstars out there, making sure that they were educated on what we were asking fans to do, because they were ultimately getting asked. With each of the pieces, we were sending out packages similar to what Claire was referring to the media, so that they knew the different talking points. But PSAs also became important. So our city government, I mean, I just can't speak highly enough about their social team, put out PSAs. WWE superstars put out a vaccination PSA, and then the NFL as well. So those became really important to help continue to echo in the community and on social.
That's fantastic. I'm kind of watching the Q&A here too, so I'm trying to weave them in so we're not go backwards. But one of the questions, which is a great question, and particularly, like I said, because you guys were some of the first ones, because you much earlier than different markets, you know, what did you do to find out some of these best practices? Obviously, we were all, you know, now following the CDC and following all the government stuff, but were there, and I mean, Claire, you already kind of hit on it. Like we watched, you know, we reached out to Memphis and FedEx Forum, and like, you know, who did you tap into? Like, was it just own personal contacts? Was it following people on social? Like, how did you, you know, because it was such a, I mean, it was like the Wild West, just trying to keep up with all the information. So that was a question that came in. So hopefully I asked that in the right way, but they were kind of, you know, what did you use in your network to help, you know, create and craft your message?
I mean,
everybody.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, we were lucky to have the NHL guidelines. So, you know, a lot of our messaging stemmed from what was communicated to us, luckily through NHL guidelines. And then our close relationship with the local health department here. So we had health department officials at every game, 3 to 4 representatives at every game, reviewing the paperwork that we put together and reviewing our signage. I I look to Disney often on a couple of, if I wasn't sure how to word something for replacing a mask after food and beverage, you know,
Great.
I
Honestly, they're the best in the biz for sure. They're so good. Ereka or Jessica, anything you want to chime in there as far as folks or anyone you, like I said, borrowed ideas from that you sort of implemented?
Our GM, she believes, I'm sorry, Jessica said, I'll go ahead.
For it.
Our GM, she believes in research. So that's one of her most important things. She will take the assignment, she will split it up amongst the teams, and that's exactly what we did. We reached out to different venues, different partners. They were in constant meetings and communications with our North Carolina Department of Human Services, as well as NBA protocols. And so anytime that there was a question that we did not have an answer to, and one thing that I really love about our team is if we don't have an answer, she makes us feel so comfortable saying we don't know. But then the next step is, well, let's see how we can find out. And so from there, any questions that came up or anything, because we know that this gave work in progress a whole new meaning, right? And so we would just set out and just use our relationships, use our partnerships, and just see if we could find answers to any of the questions, because it was constantly changing on a daily basis.
That's fantastic. Jessica, you want to chime in there?
I think, you know, we repeatedly use the phrase here in Tampa that we were building the plane while we were flying it. So, you know, it was a little stressful to be kind of that first large scale event, right? But again, the NFL leaning on them. And then I think we had talked about this previously, but, you know, partnering with the local hospital system, for us, it was Tampa General Hospital. They actually sat on our advisory board for the Super Bowl. And for us, that really helped instill consumer confidence. They're out along the Riverwalk with sanitization stations. The city of Tampa was handing out masks. So while I know a lot of people who are probably watching right now are you know, talking about one venue, certainly we're thinking about exterior spaces as well. And that really became an important part for us to kind of lean outside of just the venue folks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could definitely say in Los Angeles that, you know, obviously we've all had health department folks in our buildings, you know, from a food and beverage side and whatnot, but the relationships that have grown over the last year and a half with them at all different levels, from marketing to our GM to, you know, to all of our teams. Our Dr. Farrar is I joke, is like the biggest celebrity now at a game if she comes, because she's really been the person that's helped get our economy and these events back open to fans. So definitely different folks that I've dealt with in my career, but it's been super educational and pretty incredible to watch these, you know, honestly, in my mind, very brilliant, educated minds in what they do and how they can help us. And the fact that they, you know, it's not just our industry they're trying to reopen. There's restaurants, there's travel, there's, you know, all these sort of industries that are begging for their attention, and it's pretty incredible. At least in Los Angeles, I can't say enough about, you know, the attention and detail and knowing how important live entertainment is for people and for our economy and for our cities. So another question that came in, which we kind of have in there, I'll tie it in back in because I think it sort of flows real nice right now, is how did you communicate to the fans, number one, and then number two, your staff? Like, how did you know, did you use different technology that you needed to let people know about? Like, hey, we're not taking card tickets anymore, or we're cashless. You know, what part of your assets did you create a video, send out emails? Like, how did you communicate that to, you know, your fans and your staff? Because really they're just as both are just as important as each other at that point when you're trying to return and reopen, because you need both of them. So Cara, I'll start with you.
We started, so like I said, we did that scrimmage with our staff first. So that was the best way for us to introduce the screening process. So the NHL instilled a symptom screening process from day one, but then team members here had a separate screening, similar platform, just a few different questions. So that was our way to introduce that, get them to test it so that we can make any tweaks for fans. But then that also helped because if you needed to come to the venue for anything, you had to fill out that symptom screening. Well, we're still doing the symptom screening now. So that was a good way to practice that. We also had our in-arena host and then our broadcasters film videos for us for our digital platforms, showing how to do the symptom screening with a voiceover, showing how to enter, the bag policy, mobile ticketing. We became cashless through this. We were planning to become cashless, but this forced our hand. And we have had weekly all Smashville meetings throughout the pandemic. So we would introduce these would be agenda items we would introduce to people, staff, so that they were aware. And then email communication. I mean, email was a panel topic yesterday, so important. We were able to tweak that messaging, figure out, okay, what does the cadence need to be, and what needs to go to season ticket citizens versus single game buyers, so that we're not bombarding the season ticket citizens with the same messaging all the time. And then also, can we package everything in one email, or do we need to break it out? We landed on sending symptom screening 24 hours before or morning of.
Perfect. Ereka, you want to chime in there from the Charlotte side? Anything on that front, or as far as communicating to either staff or fans?
Well, all those things that Claire just shared as well. But one thing that I think that helped us, I guess, become just a little more comfortable, we were early voting site. So that gave us an opportunity just to kind of get an idea of what is it going to be like, to have people in the venue, and what is the protocol going to be in order for you to have access to get in the venue. And so we did that back in October. And I will always believe that just gave us an opportunity to build from there and be able to use the information or the different things that we experienced at that time to get an idea of like what's the best way of communicating, next steps or what will happen next. So everything that Claire just shared, we did the exact same things. We used our social platforms, email databases to make sure that we were distributing not only to our fans, but to the employees that had to come into work. And as well with any of our media partners to share the information that, here's how you can get access to the venue and this is what's happening next.
So Jessica, you want to chime in there as well?
In Tampa, the apps became super important with push notifications for us to be able to communicate those messages out. So in order to attend NFL Experience or to attend WrestleMania, you did have to download the app. You're having to opt in from those health and safety measures, saying that you've gone through your screening and showing that green check mark. So that was super important. We also worked with downtown partners. So outside of just our traditional folks that people might interact with, it was providing like local restaurants, things like that, with the branded messaging with regards to mask wearing, safety. So we really try to reach outside of just the event footprint or the venue footprint, still continuing with our branding, our event branding, but just making sure. And then the only other thing I would say was just from a social perspective, we did have a social team that was responsible for answering across platforms, but it became important to script and to make sure that if we were saying something, the other partners, again, whether it's a municipality or whether it's somebody from the venue compared to somebody in the organizing committee, we're all saying the same thing.
That's awesome. Kind of on that same thing, I mean, have you guys surveyed any of your season ticket holders, fans, maybe even staff as they've returned, and have any actions been taken out of that helped you guys maybe change an entry policy or change things that people were maybe very vocal or was a common theme that you've now adopted? Cara, I'll start with you.
So we made the decision to get rid of popcorn because we felt that it would encourage snacking and not mask wearing. And that was by far the number one complaint that we received, was the lack of popcorn available. And so we learned that through sending a survey. We sent a survey to every single game ticket buyer after every game, and then season ticket citizens received a survey on the first game of the month that they attended.
Awesome. Perfect. Ereka, did you guys do anything in Charlotte that kind of stood out for you?
Yes, our guest relations department worked along with our business intelligence department, and after every single game, they sent a survey. And one thing that I love is that they shared it with everyone, all of the employees, whether you worked that game or not, because it gave us an opportunity to look at what are the things that are working well, what are the things that we could sit down and have a conversation or re-strategize best practices. And again, one of the ones that always came back were different things with food and beverage. And then we had some as far as the entries. Sometimes people were a little confused as it relate to getting their QR code scan to get in for the games, and just was trying to figure out, okay, once we get in, I think they did a great job of putting up directional signage. And one of the things that stood out in one of the surveys is that our guest relations department, I saw this doing an event about 2 years ago, an Oprah event, that they had these paddle signs that kind of would say, hey, like, put on your mask or go this way. Things where you didn't have to have as much verbal communication because, of course, everyone had on their mask, but it still was a great opportunity to help out our fans and give them the information they needed or direct them where they needed to go.
That's great. Yeah, we did the paddles as well. I thought that was a great idea. Jessica, want to share anything from your Tampa experiences?
I think that, one of the things that was a little different between our events is, again, Super Bowl still had a lot of these fan interactive events. Whereas with WrestleMania, it really was the 2 nights of matches. So we did also have our volunteers here in Tampa with the different signs and the backpacks, and we really worked to communicate and train them through virtual experiences. So that really helped. But I think, going from one event to the other, especially just a month or two apart, really helped us kind of carry through and learn from one and carry through straight to the other. But there weren't any major changes between the 2 events. Our venue also went cashless. They had the reverse ATM machines. They had the PPE kits that we handed out to fans and to visiting media. So really just trying to make sure that at each turn we were re-echoing that safety message.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I shared with this group, and I'll share with everyone listening in on our biggest one at Staples Center was we basically went to a no bag policy based on some of the protocols and entries and what was necessary. And jokingly internally called it tampon gate because it became this whole thing on social that we weren't listening to women, and that where am I supposed to put all these things? And if I have medical stuff, it just opened a massive can of worms that, to be quite honest, we were shocked at. We knew there'd be some feedback, but not to that level. And then obviously for anybody that watched the earlier session with Jeannie Buss, she's a female owner of our major tenant. People were tweeting at her. So it kind of just became this whole thing. So we listened obviously to that. We were supplying complimentary products in our women's restroom and family restrooms. But we eventually were able to loosen that restriction and listen. So it was a little harsh to watch some of the comments on social, but we felt it was important to listen. And like I said, I think people appreciated that we listened. So we made some of those changes. So I'll just give that example from my side because our poor social media team took a bit of a beating, and we all, powwowed, listened, and sort of loosened those restrictions a bit. Let's see here. I've got a couple more questions.
In addition to the strong relationship with your healthcare partners, your print vendor was very important during
Amen.
just changing out signage consistently.
Yeah, we actually we use a Microsoft Teams, and we have a chat called the Signage Squad. So that is anything and everything. So we came up with the brand, a look. Again, we taken off the Smash Fill safe. We have a Staples Center safe. So it's got a brand and a look. And yeah, our signage guy made quite a comeback with our reopening. So and with things changing all the time, right? You had to 1 week, this is the protocol, the next week it's then lifted. So you want to make sure that you're not confusing. You can change everything digitally on the fly, but all those things that we've printed, for sure. Yeah, that's such a great point. Gabe's my guy, and he has saved our butt so many times. So that's a great point. There are still some more questions, and I'm going to give Brendan a shout out because he could probably moderate this panel if I had gotten sick. Great questions. Several of them are from also Canadian, because our Canadian friends up north are a little bit, unfortunately, behind us in reopening and welcoming fans back. Not only fans, but I know Adam Armet in Toronto had mentioned he went in for their game 7 to work because they didn't even have part-time staff back. Have you guys had any challenges in your markets of getting folks to return back to work and feel comfortable, particularly your part-time staff? And are there any bits of advice you can share with folks that are listening? I know it's not 100% probably our world from the marketing side, but have you heard anything or had any good experience that have helped sort of draw those folks back to work?
Well, I hear the stories. I'll go because our arena marketing department reports through our guest relations department. So we have a great relationship, and they know, I mean, it's just across, the board, everyone is having challenges getting people to return back to work. So even today we had one of our staff meetings, and we're just encouraging everyone, any ideas that you hear of, any best practices that other companies or community partners or anyone you hear like on a commercial, whatever they're doing to create some sort of incentive to get the part-time workers to come back and want to be in the space of greeting and entertaining our fans, like we're all for it. So at this point, we have decided let's step out and I guess you could say one space further and open up the opportunity to receive help from anyone that has a great suggestion or idea. So we're just going to see if we can develop a plan and work together to see what we can do to just increase employee morale.
Claire, how about in Nashville? Has that been a challenge at all, or is it anything you can share there?
It's been a challenge, and I think we all were hoping that patrons would come back with a little warmer heart. People have been a little unruly and rude to staff members. So the person who leads our guest experience team and our, guest and fan experience chose, hey, well, what can we do to express our gratitude? So they had a team who they were writing handwritten notes just to say thank you to people for, we utilize CSC, and then also distributing ice cream whenever they came in to check in for an event, just to show our gratitude and say like, hey, we know it's rough out there and we really appreciate you being here and help us support this event.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think those small things, and I mean, even Jessica, you mentioned those volunteers. I mean, I'd love to hear how they sort of recruited some of those folks for a big event like that.
Yeah, I think in any other year, people are clamoring to volunteer, whether we have Women's Final Four or Super Bowl or anything else. But there's always a certain level of attrition that comes with these volunteers. Obviously, they're not paid to be there. Again, we took our volunteer training completely virtual, but it was really important when you do volunteer at these events, you're getting a lot of swag. So, you're getting Super Bowl branded pullover and polo and you name it, all sorts of great stuff, hats. So we're also trying to protect all of the investment in those items and make sure that those people actually see through their volunteer experience. We similarly did have a reward experience where we were trying to go around, you're giving out candy and things like that to your volunteers, recognizing them on social. And if they were recognized, they were actually entered into a contest to win some Super Bowl stuff. So it really does become that important just to continue to thank them. I can tell you, you're right. People haven't been very nice, especially when you're asking them in outdoor spaces, which again, Florida just not following those guidelines, but some people just don't know the right way to speak to volunteers. So even just going up and, we were kind of saying thank you all the time. I mean, I just feel like these people give their time and their energy. We had folks fly from Minnesota to volunteer. So I think it becomes that much more important to show your gratitude too.
I mean, I think I saw something this morning, just even on Good Morning America, talking about, just getting folks in the part-time area to come back. Obviously it's been incredible what the government's been able to do and help people through these horrible times, but it's also for they mentioned off a lot of industries, like it's been a real challenge. Or again, from like, for three of us on an arena side, like they are inside with a significant amount of people. How comfortable are you with that? From a health and safety standpoint. But, I think that the leagues and the buildings have done a great job of creating that confidence to help those folks feel comfortable in coming back. But yeah, I'm definitely interested to see what, our seasons look like at the start of next season, and how, the economy is going. I think ticket sales are doing really well. So I think the confidence of people coming back to shows is great. But I'm definitely interested to see, from a staffing standpoint, what our hiring looks like for the fall. Let's see. Jessica, so maybe you can tackle, I know we've talked a lot about Super Bowl, but maybe a little bit more about WWE and kind of WrestleMania and that being their first big event back, and WWE always being such a huge part of EAMC and great support. I would love to, any fun stories, anything. It doesn't have to be like so serious about COVID and reopening and whatnot, but anything you'd like to share from that. I think that we'd all love to hear about that.
We love working with WWE. I worked with them when I was in the venue side, and we were part of WrestleMania 36, which was supposed to be here in 2020. So we were part of that cancellation, part of them coming back in 2021. I think that really the story for WWE was just how cautious they were. I think, we think about how bold a lot of their activations are from a fan perspective and an engagement perspective. At Access, you always have just a lot of one-on-one time, and they really did have to pull back on a lot of that. They did that really, one, because of the concerns with their talent, but also just creating a really safe environment for fans to come back to. So they were definitely not going to take any chances after a year away, and we're going to be smart about it. I think you saw that obviously with the way the event was spread over 2 nights. So as opposed to having a bunch of people one night, having that event over 2 nights really allowed fans to be able to come and enjoy one night or the other, some both. And then again, just making sure that we, followed all of those different virtual activations, and then putting into place the different protocols from a venue standpoint, everything from selling our WrestleMania branded masks and giving out all of that sort of stuff, right on down the line to those touchless experiences. But the only other thing I would say is, if you work with WWE, you know how big their live event sets can be. And really with those, at any time, you can always have site impediments, especially with something to the scale of WrestleMania. And we had a ship that actually took over the entire end zone of our regular pirate ship. We had an even bigger one, because why not? And so I think that that's another thing, is just making sure that, from a fan experience standpoint, you can quickly react to those concerns. So making sure that you have seats if somebody's sight lines are obstructed, and making sure that you can quickly pivot and take care of any sort of fan concerns became like one of these things we had to, be prepared for, in addition to everything that was happening, in the spotlight.
Absolutely. There's one question that came in that I'm going to save for last, because I think it's a great one. So I had one more question on my list that I just wanted to cover. I know you guys have mentioned some of these, and this could just be a quick rattle off of things, but what have you changed? Or maybe like Claire, you mentioned forced your hand at this point, that you've changed, and that's here to stay. And that's going to just be our industry moving forward. Anything that you see, Claire, that else besides cashless that you want to talk about that you've seen?
Being fully mobile. We're finally able to convert everyone over to being mobile. And then cashless, as you said, and just getting people to be, now they know to look for those communications. Sure. And like, hopefully at least our season ticket citizen base, they know to look at the app and where to find information.
Right. And when we spoke earlier, you kind of said like just that focus on over communication, right? Like you're just going to hit them over the head continuously. But like, that was our thing. Like, if you didn't see it on the Lakers app, the Clippers app, the Kings app, or our emails or our website, like, and again, I think the hard part is like, obviously, like when we start opening to shows and stuff, or we'll be the third party folks that are buying tickets from, we don't have their information. But I think that, like we've all shared, is that we tap into our media partners. So we're trying to, leave no stone unturned for these folks to learn about all these changes. Ereka, anything in Charlotte that you think is here to stay that has been a good change for the business on your side?
Those exact same practices and just getting people familiar with those. One of the other things that we came up in a meeting yesterday is what will be like our box office interaction with the fans, once we start the concerts, especially. So that's going to be a fun working part to see how we, handle that and how we can take advantage of the resources and see how good we really are as far as over communicating to make sure that they have what they need once they get to the venue.
Absolutely. We have another question that came in, but I'm gonna go to Sandra's question because I like this one. Because we've talked so much about NBA and NHL and these two bigger events down in Tampa. But what about these, fans that are buying these concert tickets? Like, how are we like emotionally appealing to them? Do we have plans to, do out, pre-show stuff outside because that's more comfortable? Because we've really communicated, like you said, Claire, to your the season ticket holder base, the select group of people that have had the opportunity, fortunately, to be inside an NBA or NHL, really playoff games, right, or end of the season. But, what about these people that are gonna come for the first time to a concert in possibly 2 years? Have you guys started talking about that on task force that, makes them feel comfortable other than all these great GBAC accreditations and cleaning and sanitization? Like, are there little things that people have thought about, maybe little nuggets that you want to share? I know we didn't prep for that question, but I think it's a great one from Sandra, and I appreciate her bringing that up. Anyone want to take that one?
Well, the question has come up in a lot of our staff meetings, and here's our truth: we don't know.
I love it. You're gonna do some research, right?
We have no, but we know that we're committed in making it, because the first thing we think about is not only how comfortable we're going to make it for the fans to return, but what if this is someone's first show, first concert, first event? Like, what are we going to do to make sure that they have such a memorable, awesome, moment? So that is high on our list as far as priority. How are we going to continue making it? Safety is our first priority, but how do we still make sure that we're doing a great job of making it a memorable, event when you come to the venue? And so it's still like the planning process.
Yeah, I think
Yes,
I was going to say, I think, we have an event that's coming up here in the fall. It's an outdoor concert. It sold out in 13 days. So, some folks, which has never happened before in its history. So, folks are excited to get back. But I think one of the things that we talked about is this hyper awareness too, that people have now in some of these spaces of, what are you doing to keep me safe? And so while we can, over communicate verbally, the other thing that we have to do is make sure from a visibility standpoint and a consumer confidence standpoint that we are, out there with, some really visible aspects of what we're doing, to try and keep people spaced and comfortable, whether that's a reduced capacity or things like that. During Super Bowl, we had pods. We had a concert out there with a podded experience. So there's definitely some different options. But I think to that extent, like, we almost have to work twice as hard on the visibility front with some of these customers when we're out there, so that we can keep that genuine confidence and keep them coming back.
Awesome. Claire, anything you want to add there?
To be continued. But yeah, like stated earlier, making sure that you have a place for, relocations for people with sightlines, that if you have someone attending an event for the first time, like, can you accommodate them? And just thinking about what what maybe you could do for them, because you want them to feel safe and you want them to come back. It's not on the, it's on the NHL side, but we implemented a first game program. So if someone attended their first game, then we gave them a fan pack and just had someone available there to answer any questions for them. So, just that is a great question, and maybe something that we can instill for people attending their first non-sporting event.
And we could steal from Disney, like your first time there, your first, your birthday.
Your button.
Exactly, your button. I think those are great ideas. I'll chime in on one thing that we did. We have Pepe Aguilar, it's a Latin artist, doing a jarapeo in November, and he actually did a press conference to announce it. We did it all outside, but we also partnered with the mayor's office as well as Pepe's team, and he did a PSA to promote vaccinations. So not every artist is going to be that upfront and vocal about it. I think probably more than not. But it was great. And it gave us, again, as that tie-in to the local committee or to the local jurisdiction, as well as the mayor's office is able to run that PSA across a lot of our in-market folks had given PSA time. So it was a great win-win all the way around. It kind of fell in our lap, but we're also looking to do it with a band that we'll be reopening the building with. So I think in that aspect, the PSA stand front, now it's more shifted for confidence in our market would be, we want more people to get vaccinated. It just sort of helps in that aspect. But again, that's a very whole other topic. So we have about 3 minutes left. There was one question that just came in. And this may be a personal opinion, so totally, if you don't feel comfortable, but I think it's a good point. And I think it kind of, Claire, you touched on it, that people haven't been the nicest as returning. I want to generalize everybody, but there's definitely been some people are frustrated. That's not how it used to be, right? But this person said, thinking about the psychology of being pent up at home for so long, do you feel that the recent fan behavior at NBA playoff games and that have been in the news, i.e. throwing items at players or, using foul language, or quarantine related to people expressing these to the event volunteers or workers, and just using that moment to vent their frustration? From a PR angle, how do you sort of tackle and convince people not to do things like that? So I don't know who wants to take that one. It's a little loaded, but if you guys have any, and it could be obviously your own personal opinion, but feel free, whoever wants to take that one. Anybody?
From a personal standpoint, right? We've all been accustomed to the fans always right, but then when it crosses the line and it turns into someone, feeling like that they can attack someone or throw something to someone, then it has to go to the next level, because again, safety should, and keeping everyone safe and feeling healthy should apply to everyone, our fans, our players, our employees. And so you would hope that you would never have to address that. But if you do, then, you just have to go back to probably the protocol of, if you need to be that aggressive, then you need to move to probably phase 2 and figure out how to safely remove the person from the venue. But the first phase for us is the customer is always right. So we always try to go over and beyond to accommodate any fan or customer that feels like they haven't gotten what they paid for, or, they're not enjoying the event. And, that can be impacted by so many different things, right? And so you just have to really address it on an event by event basis and just try to, in that moment, come up with what's the best practice for this particular incident, or hopefully no incidents at all, but in case, you just have to address it when it makes itself available.
Well, hopefully the guy in Boston being arrested will convince people that not to throw stuff at players. But
Showcasing when somebody is behaving appropriately, or even being over the top, putting those types of things on social messaging.
Totally, that's such a great positive spin to it. Jess, you want to close us out here? Any last thoughts? We got about 30 seconds.
No, I think you guys said it beautifully. We have to handle each situation individually. Unfortunately, a lot of these things are going to be politicized, but the first and foremost is the fan experience and making sure that we just put a great product out there for everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. This was incredible. Hopefully you guys got a lot out of it. Thank you to everyone watching that submitted questions. It made it really even more interactive and go a lot faster than I even expected. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the day and hope to see you at the mixer tonight. Take care.
Thank you.
Everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.